Don't I look delicious? Can I drop you a line sometime? I'd like to catch a little bit of you. Hi, my friends. Welcome back to the 52 Sunday Dinners Project, where we are taking this cookbook, The 52 Sunday Dinners by Women's World Magazine in 1924, and we are going week by week and recreating every recipe in each menu in the week that it was meant to be in the calendar. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. My name is Ashley. I'm a registered dietitian and I love everything vintage and food. That's what's led me to this project here. We started at the 31st Sunday dinner, I believe, and have come all the way around. We're now at the 15th, which means we only have a few more months to go. For today's menu, we will be having a baked stuffed shad with parsley and lemon. On the side, boiled new potatoes. Also, asparagus with a cream sauce. Our salad today is a dandelion salad with French dressing. And for dessert, we are going to have a rhubarb pie. This is normally the part where I invite you to come on in and join me in the kitchen and we start cooking. However, this week, we're going to start with a road trip. Join me down to the Strip District in Pittsburgh to see if we can find shad. Our menu for this week, the main course is stuffed shad. And I don't know about you, but I have never heard of shad before. And shad is a fish, in case you're like, what the heck is stuffed shad? It's a fish. And I have not seen it anywhere in my area. And I looked up substitutes, and I believe trout is supposed to be a good substitute, but I also can't find any of that here either. So I'm making the trip down to Pittsburgh. They have the Strip District there, and there is a fish place called Woolies. We are going to go hit them up, see what we can find there, and maybe we'll hit a few other places up as well. But before that, we're going to hit my favorite salvage grocery store. Some of you may have these around your area, some of you may not, but this is where I get some of my more seemingly expensive, higher end groceries for a way better price. So I'll take it in there, see if we can find some gluten-free flour is what I'm really looking for, but we'll see what we can find there, and then we'll be on our way to Pittsburgh. Here we are. Hey! So when you come in at first, it's all household products, like $3.50 for a Mrs. Meyer refill. Beat that. I already have like a billion of them, so I'm not going to get any. But I also have refrigerated and a whole boatload of coffee always, which I now am staying away from because it happens to be one of the highest products carrying mold, so I have to really stay away from it at the moment. But this used to be my favorite section. Let's see, because I know you're going to say, well, how much is something like that? Like this Starbucks. That's a brand everybody knows. $2.99. That big old thing of Starbucks. Whole bean. K-cups. It's amazing. Well, I'm not seeing any of the gluten-free flours that I normally do, so they must be out at the moment, or maybe that just wasn't in the groceries they've gotten recently. But this is also a gluten-free flour. It's a green plantain flour for $2.99. Pretty interesting. I don't think I'm going to get it because I have a feeling it'll just sit on my shelf and I won't actually use it, and it'll go to waste when somebody else could use that and actually get use out of it, and it wouldn't go to waste. So I'm gonna skip that and see if there's anything else that I can find here. And there's a whole bunch of these gluten-free Simple Mills crackers. and I do still have quite a few at home, so I'm going to skip over that. However, I did find these dried apricot halves. They're unsweetened. All it is the apricot halves. They're USDA organic certified for $5.50. And sometimes, like, a lot of people are probably wondering, what about the expiration date? Is it a problem? And sometimes things have gone past their best by date when you get them here. However, that's good through 2025, so we will be picking that up. So I paid $12.99 for that whole grocery haul, which I know wasn't that many things, but still, I was curious about how much I would have to pay for these apricots regularly. I checked it on Amazon. Apricots that are that size, organic, is $27.99. Some other places are a little bit more, and that's just the apricots. Oh, wait, let's see. Here on Amazon, how much are they? Unavailable. Yeah, I have them. They're right here. You can't even get that kind right now. $27.99 for the next best one. I would say if you have one of these stores around you or within drivable distance, it is definitely worth going to. All right, baby. Penn Mac. Let's go see what they have inside. Barrel full of nuts. It's Easter time. Now the good stuff. Really cute. We'll get some little Easter cookies, I think. How does that sound? Oh, I heard the Steel City Salt Company sells their stuff over here at Pennsylvania Libations. And they have this fantastic ghost pepper salt. So let's go see if they have it here. No luck on the salt there, but I did find an interesting liquor. So, not what I was going in for, but I always find something I wasn't looking for when I go into a store. Now we're going to look for an Asian market and see if we can find some chicken feet before we move on to our fish. Alright, let's go see if WFH Oriental Market has some chicken feet. Cross your fingers for me. And this is one of the places I usually get into trouble with because their snacks are so cool. I can't control myself when I see them. I just have to buy like all of them. Chicken feet right there. There we go. Score! sure they have it here. Usually is, except last year. There's tons of burdock all over the property, and Nani sends me out to dig it up for her, and then she prepares the stems for us. But I've been eating the root a lot more recently. And it's just I've never seen it or heard of it anywhere else, so it's so interesting to see it here. The other thing I found super interesting is deer's tail extract. What is that used for? And, I see from the picture what it is used for. Never mind. I wonder if that is actually made from a deer's tail. We also have plenty of deer in our area, so. Well, that's about the cutest can that I've ever seen. I kind of want to buy that just to have the can, but I know that would be the wrong choice. I took a class making pierogi there once. It was super fun, and it looks like they're closed now. Otherwise I would pick up my Easter pierogi from them, but we'll pick them up with Nani at Broadway Market instead. Get us some fish. Keep the head, please. Thank you.
It's going to have eggs in it too. You're going to keep those?
Sure.
Yeah, all right. Shad rose very hot.
They're cleaning it up for me and everything. This is incredible. When I looked it up online, it said nobody carried shad at all anymore. And when I looked on the website, I didn't see it. And it said to try trout as an alternative, and here they have a ton of it. This is incredible. And I probably should be cleaning it up myself. However, I know that if our grandmothers and great-grandmothers and mothers had the option to have it cleaned at the time, they would have done it. So I'm gonna just be a real authentic person in this, and this is what they would have done. And actually they're letting me keep the roll inside as well. I don't know how I'm going to use it, but we'll try it. I'll try anything.
Rich, anywhere is online one.
So they just told me, looking at all this other cool stuff they have here, but they just told me that shad is extremely seasonal, and if I would have come next week, they probably would not have had it. So there is definitely something to this being seasonal. However, I am buying it a week and a half in advance of when the film, actually, the video would come out. So if I would have waited and come on time, we would not have been able to get it to. got what we came for and several things we did not come for, which always happens when I come here. And now we're gonna head home, feed our ducks, and we'll jump back into the video with the cooking portion. We're gonna go look for some dandelion greens. I checked a little bit earlier and did not see that many, and the ones that I did see are like this big. If we can't find enough dandelions, or they aren't big enough this week, if they haven't popped yet, we might have to wait until next week or the following week. So we may omit the salad this week and maybe have 2 salads the following week or the week after. But let's go check. We have some helpers here. I don't think they're going to give up much of the dandelions if they find them. They will eat their own dandelion salad, but at least they'll keep me company, I suppose. Let's see what we have here. We do have these are about the largest ones I've seen so far, and I've never actually had dandelion salad that I can recall. I've heard about it and I'm open to trying it. I've had dandelion tea, but I don't know if I've ever actually had a salad. So I don't know if this is the appropriate size, but this just seems so tiny to me, and I don't know. I'm thinking, and there aren't that many. Here's another one here, but looking around, I don't see too many that are standing out that aren't like this. I mean, this is just teeny tiny. So yeah, let's look a little bit longer, and I have a feeling that I might just be feeding you guys today. Hi babies. The daffodils are coming in though. Hi babies. For a rhubarb pie and the pie crust that's going to go with that, as we have discussed before, if this is your first time watching actually, you may be wondering why we aren't going with this pie crust recipe when we're recreating these menus. The reason is that in our experience so far, every time we have used one of their pie crust recipes, and we may have used this one in the past, I'm not sure, they have turned out terrible. None of the recipes work out. And so I have a now tried and true pie crust recipe from our friend Cindy, and it worked out beautifully. However, I am testing out a gluten-free recipe this time. If you are unaware, I currently cannot eat gluten, and I want to be able to test out this recipe. So instead of going with a regular traditional pie crust, even though that's kind of the purpose of this, we're working around some of those dietary needs. We're gonna go ahead and make this pie crust gluten-free. I'm using the Bob's Red Mill gluten-free pie crust mix, and it does instruct us to put this mix along with some cold butter, cold shortening, and 6 tablespoons of ice water together. We started out in the food processor, and I have, I believe it's from the 70s or the 80s, a General Electric food processor, which is what we're going to be using. And I'll follow the rest of the instructions on the package, and hopefully it'll turn out well. I'll go ahead and include the recipe that I'm using, even though it's not part of this cookbook, but I'll let you know what the recipe is that I'm using in case you want to use it for yourself. We got lucky with this rhubarb. I actually was going to trade out desserts this week for the one 2 weeks from now, because I couldn't find rhubarb anywhere yet. I was just in the Strip District, and although I didn't go into every store there, I didn't see it in any of the stores that I passed by. Now, I could have missed it. However, I also, for this week's menu, because there is no recipe for it, I missed the new potatoes on the menu. And we also aren't doing the dandelion salad, and I thought, holy moly, I can't skip all of these recipes and substitute. There'd be no point in even making this. So I ran out a little bit earlier to get the new potatoes, and I remembered there is another small business store that sells a bunch of different produce that sometimes I go to, but I don't know why I don't think of her often enough. Katie's Bulk Foods right in Brookville, Pennsylvania on Main Street. My girl hooked me up with 2 bags of frozen pre-chopped rhubarb. I don't have to do any of the chopping. This is the tender kind, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'm just gonna pour that boiling water over top of this. We might not even have to do that because it's previously frozen. It might be tender enough already, but we're gonna do it just to bring it up a little bit closer to room temperature, or actually hot, I guess, because I imagine we need it to dissolve some of this sugar a little bit. So let's get the, cover it in boiling water for 5 minutes. It smells pretty good, actually. Might need to wait a few more minutes and let it come to temperature a little bit more. It's been chilling a little over an hour and it is kind of just crumbling apart there. So let's give it a few minutes to rest at regular room temperature, and then we'll come back at this. For some reason, I just did a time warp recording of that. I must have hit the wrong button, but I started rolling it out, and it's been several minutes, and it really isn't much better in texture. Now, maybe I just need to keep rolling it and it'll come together. I'm not sure, but let's see. It's kind of just crumbling. It feels like it should be well formed, and I actually added more water. Maybe it said you could add up to 2 more tablespoons, and that wasn't enough. It wasn't coming together. We added maybe 4 more tablespoons instead of the 2, maybe even 5, but I'm not sure about that. And it finally came together at the end. I don't know if we added too much or maybe we needed a little more, but does anybody else have experience with this particular dough mix? It's the King Arthur dough mix. Ugh, it doesn't look good, I'll tell you that. I got it rolled out in some sort of a shape. I don't know what shape that is, but it's something. I feel like if you want to do some artwork, you could turn this into a walking monster or something. Yeah, I don't really know what that shape is, but we're gonna try and fit it into this pie pan. You guys did give me some tips and tricks, like roll your pie crust around your rolling pin. We'll see if that works, because this shape is doesn't seem too conducive to cooperating, and it's also kind of sticking to the bottom. I thought I had enough flour, but I don't think I did. But that's okay. We're still, we're doing okay. All right. Okay. I think we have enough. There's some areas that are going to need patched, which I know is not ideal, but this is still an improvement on the first several months of trying to make pie crusts. So I'm going to take it. I have our sugar with the cornstarch and a few grains of salt mixed up in here. We'll get our rhubarb in there. And then into this pie crust. It actually looks pretty good in there. The texture seems to be okay now. We'll get the little lattice top on top. Kind of excited to do a little lattice work. I think it'll turn out probably terrible the first time I do it with this pie crust, and there'll be plenty of room for improvement, but I'm just kind of excited to try it out for the first time. There's only half as much sugar as rhubarb, but it looks like double the sugar to me. Okay, that looks like kind of the correct amount to be in there. Let's work on this lattice. While this dough comes to temperature a little bit so that we can roll it out, I rolled out the leftover pieces from that first pie dough, crust, whatever you want to call it. And I'm making just a few little pieces so that we can do the lattice work there. Well, by George, I think it's long enough. This dough is more fragile than I expected. Okay, so this isn't the best work ever, but for a first try, it's not the worst. Wait, maybe that area could use a little extra. Yes, there we go. Now we need a rim, which consequently, this might be perfect for. Oh wait, I'm supposed to use a fork to do this. Pressing firmly with the tines of a fork. I don't know how firmly, but we're going to do it pretty firm because otherwise it won't stick. Ooh, that was a little too firm. Sorry about that. I also think I'm going to employ a trick that I have seen before and use aluminum foil on the edges to keep it from burning. This asparagus recipe is, I believe we talked last week about this with the green beans or the string beans. They really just cook the heck out of these vegetables and put a cream sauce on them. And I really love asparagus on its own, no cream sauce, just sauteed a tiny bit or even raw. But we're gonna follow with this recipe. And I find this one a little bit interesting because it does give us a different serving option on the toast sticks. And we don't have, I'd like to point out while I'm doing this, because I'll show you the potatoes next, there is no recipe for the potatoes. It just says new potatoes. And so I bought some little tiny potatoes and whoops, a hot potato. We have a rolling runaway potato. I plan on just boiling them in salted water and serving them maybe with a little bit of salt, pepper, and butter, or maybe just salt and pepper, as that seems to be how everything else has been served so far in this cookbook. So we're just gonna keep it really simple with that. So I have some water boiling, we'll throw those in, and I think we'll probably cook our asparagus at the same time. I probably should have used a much bigger pot to do that in, but this is what we have right now, so maybe we'll pretend it's like pasta and it'll kind of squish down and eventually we can just swirl it. The cream sauce for this, we still have cream sauce left over from last week's dinner with the string beans. We also still have some asparagus soup left over. So what I did, and what I imagine our foremothers would have done as well, is if they had all that left over and they had refrigeration, they would have done what I did, which was take the cream sauce, the original cream sauce, which was a little bit thick, and thin it out with a little bit of the asparagus soup. So it does have a little bit of that asparagus flavor in it, which the cream sauce that the recipe calls for would have with the asparagus water. So I think this is a pretty decent substitute, and it's pretty economical as it isn't going to cost us anything for this meal because we have it left over. You know, packed away somewhere, I have just the cutest asparagus serving platter. And I know one of these years, because I anticipate that this is just the beginning of my YouTube journey and getting to know you guys. But one of these years I'm going to have to unpack all of my kitchen equipment and share it with you and do something with it, because there's a ton of it. And, you know, I buy it or I receive it as a gift with the intention of using it, and then an opportunity to use it comes up and it's packed away, which is totally useless. So one of these days we're gonna get there. we have to clean out the closet first. Then we'll get to the kitchen equipment. That's probably too many. I think I've overcrowded this, but we only have one more left. There we go. And from last week, we actually still have, which I filmed just a few days ago, we still have some of those rice potatoes with the egg yolks left over. So we're gonna use those as part of our filling here. And I have to say, I am kind of both fascinated as well as slightly repulsed by working with this fish. I did choose to keep the head and the tail on as I figured it was probably the most authentic to the 1920s. I thought they probably would have done the same thing, although I could be wrong. I am very grateful that I am not the one that has to clean this sucker. And I do have the eggs in here, so I'm trying to determine if I'm going to fry those up and try to eat them and be brave. I'm the same thing with this roe. I am both fascinated and a little bit disgusted by it, but I kind of want to try it anyway. I've been a little fascinated and disgusted with several of these recipes so far, and some of them have turned out to be amazing. So maybe I will try that tomorrow. We'll see. But in the meantime, let's get this stuffing mixed together. The breadcrumbs are already in there, and I'm using I think it's Shad brand, just regular plain old breadcrumbs. I didn't want to use those seasoned breadcrumbs as I don't think they would have used those same seasonings in this stuffing here. It does not mention any other herbs. However, as we have discussed in a lot of the more recent videos, the women who were making these and following this, many of them, now some of them wouldn't know to, but many of them would have been adding their own herbs and spices as their family liked it or as the cook enjoyed it. I know I like dill, and dill pairs well with fish, so I'm going to add some dill in here to this stuffing to help it out a little bit. And our melted butter. I forgot our boiling water, but I'm a little bit confused as to why it has to be boiling water. Why can't it just be regular water? So help me out with that one. All right, there isn't a ton of space to stuff this thing with. I don't know if I'm supposed to cut it open more. This is as far as it was cut open, so, but I imagine its spine is right here. So am I supposed to just stuff right here? Or should I cut it open more? I think this is a boning knife, but I don't know how to use it actually. Well, that's definitely its spine, all right. I don't think I can cut through that. I mean, probably I could if I kept going, but I have a feeling I would cut my hand. Ow! Yeah, I don't think I can cut any further into there without demonstrating what not to do. So let's just stuff the cavity we have here. You let me know what I should have done. Any of you that have any familiarity with cooking whole fish like this. Also, I'm looking at our baking dish and the size of this fish. Maybe they didn't leave the head on, and maybe they didn't leave the tail on, and maybe they deboned it because, well, there's tons, as I'm saying that and stuffing it, there's going to be a lot of stuffing left over because there's no way all that'll fit in here. And this is just over a 3-pound shad, but it's definitely not going to fit inside of that baking dish. And it seems like a lot of their baking dishes were smaller than what I have today in modern times. So what size baking dish were they using, or did they chop the head off? I've realized another investment I should have made is a needle to sew all of these cooking things with, my chickens and fish and whatnot. So I'm going to sew this or secure it with toothpicks, and hopefully that's good enough. This fish skin is slippery. Ooh, and it's also not strong. It's just slicing right through it. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. I don't think sewing would have kept this together, or maybe I've just overstuffed it so much that it's ripping through. This is not secure enough. Well, good luck to this. We have some fat salt pork down on the bottom. This little fish is just gonna go in like this. And, oh, this is not big enough. This is not how it should be, but this is what we have. I think this is my biggest baking pan that's out and available right now. Where is my roasting pan? Maybe I should use the roasting pan instead. Decisions. I went and got my roasting pan, and it's slightly bigger, but I don't know that it's big enough. I'm gonna end up dirtying this roasting pan just to find out we can't use it. It's not quite big enough, but it's bigger than this pan here. Oh, I'm still getting some scales. All right, let's transfer. I like to make as many dishes as possible to wash by the time this is done. Our hot water, there is some of the strips over top of the fish. And let's get her in the oven. Now, without the salad, our meal is looking a little bit small here, but that's okay. For a normal meal today, I don't think it looks too small, but for the meals that we've been accustomed to with these Sunday dinners, it does seem a little bit sparse. But that's what we have, and I had no idea how to open this sucker up, and I still don't know if I really do. I did Google a video on how to cut this sucker open and fillet it. I have a feeling I'm going to do a very poor job at it. It's not going to turn out well, but you're going to go ahead and watch that on camera anyway. From what I understand, if this thing has been cooked properly, it should be very easy, and I'm supposed to follow the anatomy. I'm supposed to cut the belly, which has already been cut. I'm supposed to cut along this dorsal spine, if that's the right word, and then the tail and the head. And they're supposed to be very easy to separate with a butter knife and a spoon. Let's find out. Oh, okay. This isn't too bad. Seems like a lot of meat is coming out of there. Ooh. Okay. Ooh, the skin's coming with it. Yeah, that's okay. I don't particularly love skin, although there's a lot of good fats in there. I do believe the video said there are pin feathers up along that spine, but maybe I'm wrong about that too. Now, to separate the head, I believe. Ooh. I'm hitting the spine there, I think. And there's supposed to be some clear separation between the belly and this. Is this the dorsal meat, maybe? The belly meat and the dorsal meat with the spine. That feels like a spine. Okay. I hope I'm doing this right and not embarrassing myself. And then I'm supposed to separate the fin. Or the tail. That's it, tail. Okay. And then remove. Are those bones? Oh, there's a lot of, this feels very soft, but I'm pretty sure that's a bone. Aw, you're gonna watch me choke on this video. Oh yeah, there's a lot of bones in there. Holy moly. What in the Shad hill? Oh, look at all these. Oh, I'm gonna die. I have never carved a fish on my own before. I've only ever received it fully cleaned. Oh boy, yeah. This should be interesting, folks. This looks like a cat having whiskers. Look at this thing. Look at all these bones. Oh my goodness. All you anglers who catch your own fish and clean them and then eat them right there, I apologize for whatever frustration you may be feeling watching me do this now. All right, we have everything plated. I pulled in this tiny little portion here that is about the size of my fist of the other bones that were already pulled out. I pulled out all of these bones, and I imagine I'm about to choke on another one. I did cut myself a little extra lemon because I prefer lemon on my fish. And let's see how this tastes. I've never had shad before. In fact, I'd never heard of shad prior to this menu. When it said stuffed shad, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know it was a fish. I didn't know anything until I read a little bit further. Oh, found another bone. Ooh, that looks like a little wishbone. Kind of looks like a split end. All right. There isn't a strong smell. It smells slightly of fish and lemon that I just squeezed on there. It's not bad. I'd say it's, for me, just okay. It's a little soggy. It's not very firm, and maybe it needs to be baked a little bit longer, or maybe it's because we kept basting it with bacon grease and hot water the whole time. But it's not firm and flaky. It's more like the texture of canned tuna, but canned tuna might be more dry than this. Maybe it's also because I took it from the belly fat that was back toward the tail. I'm not sure. Let's try it with the stuffing. Again, the stuffing isn't that exciting. It really just kind of tastes like lemon in the ocean, but it's a mild flavor. It doesn't taste exceptionally fishy or anything. It kind of just tastes like a regular white fish that is a little bit soggy. This recipe, while fun, is probably not one I would look forward to eating again. I don't mind fish. I like a lot of fish, in fact, depending on how it's prepared. This is not the worst I've ever had, but it's just kind of bland and okay. I've had a lot better fish than this. Let's try our potato, which I think is going to taste like a potato. There isn't much more to say about potatoes at this point. I will say with the stuffing, I didn't taste the potato in the stuffing, and I assume it was just to kind of add a little bit of moisture and stretch that stuffing out a little bit, help bind it, but I'm not sure what the stuffing added to the mixture of our... Did I say stuffing? I'm not sure what the potato added to the mixture of the stuffing other than moisture, binding, and stretching. I imagine this is exceptionally impolite using my hands for this, but I want to try one of the little toasts with our asparagus here, and holding on to it with the fork is not going to work out. So we're just going to grab it like it's a little sandwich or something. Oh, I love that. You guys have suggested it. The way I have done the cream sauce on all of these, I've kind of like tossed the sauce with the vegetables. And for this one, I kind of just drizzled it over top. And I like that much better. There's much less sauce on this. And we did thin this sauce out as well. So the flavor of the vegetable comes out much more. And I like that I think it complements it much better, and it makes the meal much better as well. You're actually tasting the vegetable. And we did boil this one a lot. And while I prefer asparagus that has just been sauteed lightly or lightly steamed, I think it's good enough that if it's fresh and it's been boiled a while, sometimes it can hold up well to that. And this one did. The buttered toast underneath is it's different. For me, it's kind of fun. I associate buttered toast with breakfast and not with asparagus. I mean, I've had avocado toast, ricotta toast, all sorts of different toasts before, but not with asparagus. So this is I think, a fun, pleasant thing together. Next up should be the dandelion salad. However, as I explained earlier, our dandelion leaves are like this big. When I was in town today, I did see that they had, like along the sidewalks, their dandelion leaves were about this big. And I contemplated for a second. I thought, oh, look, I can pick some of these. They're on public land. That'll be perfect. And then I thought, I have no idea if these things have been sprayed. They're near the road, what the roads have been treated with. And so I decided to decline that idea pretty immediately. So next week or the following week, whenever our dandelions are ready, we'll go ahead and just have 2 salads. I don't think I will be upset at that at all. Now it's time for our pie. And I have to say, it's not the worst looking thing in the whole world. It certainly looks homemade and like an amateur did it. But, like 9 months ago, this wouldn't even be a possibility for me. So I'm a little proud of my very amateur work. Okay. I'll come back once it's cut because this is probably going to be a mess. I did not grease the pie pan prior to baking or putting the pie crust in there. I don't remember if I was supposed to or not, but it did stick a little bit in some areas on the bottom, but overall not the worst looking piece of pie I've ever seen. It smells to me like a rhubarb pie. I think most of the rhubarb pies that I have had have been either a custard pie with like a custard or a pudding filling with the rhubarb or strawberry rhubarb. I don't know how many times I've had just a plain rhubarb pie. I think it's very pretty. The reds in the rhubarb look very nice inside of this pie. It smells good. That's delicious. The rhubarb is sour, but there is also just a metric ton of sugar inside of this pie. So it's also very sweet. And I think when I've had it before, I've had the benefit of, or I guess I wouldn't call it a benefit at this point because this is so delicious. I've had the sweetness of that custard to kind of offset that sour. And I think I haven't noticed the sour as much, or maybe it's just been so long since I've had a rhubarb pie that I forgot how that sour is in there. But, oh, this is wonderful. I love this. Someday when I learn how to garden, I think I'm going to have to start growing rhubarb because this, holy moly, this is wonderful. Now, I imagine you have to use probably a lot of sugar to offset the sourness of this, but I've never seen rhubarb myself that I'm remembering in much except for pie. Now, in a few weeks, somewhere in the next few weeks, I believe there's a rhubarb bread on the menu, but I've never heard of that before. Do you guys use rhubarb for anything other than pies? What else can rhubarb be used for? I mean, I don't know if it needs to go in anything besides pies because this is delicious and I think this is a great use of rhubarb. I haven't even mentioned the pie crust. If you told me this was gluten-free, I would know. And I also know, I guess, because I made it and I read the ingredients and I read the label on the bag. But other than that, this pie crust is perfectly fine. I think I was so focused on the flavor of the rhubarb that I didn't pay attention to the crust, but I don't think I noticed that there was anything different about the crust. It tastes just like a regular crust to me. So I think this is a perfectly fine substitute. Let's try it again. Maybe the crust is a little more crumbly, a little more dry than a standard pie crust. However, unless you specifically told me to pay attention to the pie crust and the texture of it, and maybe you gave me this pie crust next to a regular wheat flour pie crust, I really don't think I would notice the difference at all. I think overall, this menu was also a success. While I'm not the biggest fan of the fish, if you are somebody who likes a nice kind of mild white fish, you may have really enjoyed this. I think the potatoes, the asparagus, they went really well along with this. And if we had had that dandelion salad, a nice kind of bitter green, I assume, I haven't tasted it before, but I assume that it is a bitter green. I think that would have also complemented it really well. And obviously, you know, I really loved our dessert, the rhubarb pie. I think because of my kind of neutrality on the main dish, but my enthusiasm for the dessert, I'm going to give this menu maybe like a 7 or an 8. I think everything went well together. I think everything except the fish I thought was delicious today. And the fish was just fine for me. Overall, I think it was much more positive than a little bit neutral. Nutrition-wise, that was an excellent start to a meal. We have a nice lean fish. Now, we did stuff it. If we would have left the stuffing out, I think it would have been even healthier. However, even with that stuffing, very good lean protein to start our meal. Then we move on. We have our simple carbohydrate with the potatoes, and we have asparagus. Now, the asparagus did come with a little bit of that thin cream sauce and on top of toast. But as we discussed back then, people were a lot more active and they put those simple carbohydrates to good use. Next, we have the dandelion salad. And as many of you probably already know, dandelion greens come with a plethora of health benefits. If you look at any dark leafy green, really, for the most part, unless there is some medical reason for you to not eat them, they're so good for you. One of the best things that you could be eating. Now, added to that salad, we were also supposed to have hard-boiled eggs, which are an excellent source of protein and fats. You get your choline that way if you're eating the egg yolks. And then, in addition, our dessert for the menu was a rhubarb pie. So we have another vegetable, even though it is laden in sugar. There was a vegetable with some fiber in there and some vitamins and minerals in our dinner dessert. Nutrition-wise, for the time, I would probably give this maybe an 8 or 9. Now, budget-wise, for the most part, this was a pretty inexpensive meal, especially considering some of these things we already had made from the previous week. So the potatoes for our stuffing, the cream sauce for our asparagus. And if we would have had our dandelion greens, we could have just walked out to the front yard and picked them ourselves. Hopefully, they would have had a garden back then, so maybe the rhubarb would have also been free. Our shad was, I think, just over $25 for that fish. Then we're not going to consider the amount, the cost of the gas that it took me to drive the 2 hours down to Pittsburgh to pick it up. But outside of the fish, most of everything else was pretty inexpensive. The rhubarb, I believe, was $8.50 for the bag maybe, and we didn't use the full bag. Maybe we used like $6 or $7 worth of rhubarb in there. And the next most expensive thing would have been the asparagus. Looking at all those different amounts, and we're going to pretend that the pie crust were the ingredients that were in the menu and not that more expensive gluten-free option. We're looking at around $50 to $55 for this menu for 6 people. If you've been enjoying watching these meals being made, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel so that you never miss another Sunday dinner. Join us next week where I believe we're supposed to have some special guests, and we're going to be trying out, I believe, angel sponge cake and a perfection salad. See you next time.